Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Future in 5. My name is Jacob Morgan. This is where I share my thoughts, ideas, and commentary on the future of work in 5 minutes or less. And I'm joined by a very special guest, Josh Bersin.
Hi, Jacob.
From Bersin & Associates. Now it's Bersin by Deloitte. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we're at his offices in downtown Oakland. You can probably see the beautiful view of the Lake Merritt in downtown Oakland. And we're here to talk about HR and the future of HR. And Josh has 4 tips or 4, key takeaways for Bold HR.
Right.
So what are those 4 key takeaways for Bold HR?
Well, it's B-O-L-D, believe it or not.
I like it. I like
B is build an irresistible organization. So focus on employee engagement and retention and make their lives better, not just harder. So don't just roll out stuff that's good for HR. Do things that are good for people, and there's a lot of things behind that.
Yeah, so what's like an example of these like health and wellness programs? And
yeah, I mean, you think about the typical onboarding program or diversity program or compliance program. A lot of times there's a lot of HR jargon and complexity and process involved, and people don't have time for that. So can you make it fun? Can you make it engaging? Can you make it interesting? Can you make it valuable for them, not just for you? That's really the mission.
So focus on the people, not just on the company as a whole.
Exactly.
Okay.
And part of that is really getting feedback from people. So the whole engagement industry of how we do engagement and how we listen to people is radically changing now that we have all these real-time tools, and so that's part of it.
So that's the B.
That's the B. O is own the leadership agenda.
Okay.
Leadership is the number one challenge amongst HR and senior business leaders.
Really?
Particularly building leaders amongst first-line supervisors and millennials, young people. And roughly 40% of your workforce is usually first-line managers, and most of them, at least a third to a half of them, are not comfortable in leadership jobs because they got promoted into leadership from their functional expertise. So there's about a $14 billion industry of tools and training and coaching and books for development of leadership. So that is one of the most important things that HR does.
What do you see about, just as a total side note, around millennials and leadership? Are you seeing more millennials becoming or taking these managerial and leadership jobs and less... is it bad if I say older people?
Old people like me?
More younger people that are taking these management and leadership jobs. I read some statistic. I think it was that like 63% of managers currently are eligible to retire, or some huge number like that, 50 or 63%, which is scary. Mm-hmm. So are millennials taking these jobs? Is this kind of...
Millennials are like everybody else. You reach a point in your career after 3-5 years where you want something new, you want to get promoted, you want to have a bigger responsibility, you want to add more value, so you want to move into management. And right now, companies, if you look at the pyramid, you turn it upside down, there's a huge number of people in the entry-level part of the workforce. And so new leaders have to come from that group. And only roughly, last research we did, only 14 or 15% of companies have strong millennial development programs.
Wow.
Because we kind of did away with those during the last recession. So we got to build them back up. So that's a big area of HR.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay, so that's B
O.
And the O.
L is what we call leverage learning everywhere. And that's about learning.
I like that.
And the sort of story on learning is the learning industry has exploded with growth. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. And the reason for that is that personal financial success today is tied to your skills.
Yeah.
If you're good at your job and you're keeping up on it, you're probably going to make more money than somebody who's not that good at it. And so we're all constantly reskilling ourselves, whether we're in technical roles or sales roles or professional roles, whatever they are. And corporate learning has fallen behind learning in the outside in the public internet. So most corporate training departments are really struggling to deal with all this content and technology and formal education they have in corporate universities and bring it together into a really highly engaged environment. And these days, particularly amongst young people, people go to work for companies where they feel like they will be able to develop their careers. So if the company doesn't have development programs and career development investments, they will not be able to hire. So it's not just a problem of building skills for productivity and performance and quality, it's also engaging and attracting people. So learning is really critical. So, and I've been in the learning space 15, 20 years. I've never seen it like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, most people, I'm assuming that watching can relate to the fact that traditional learning used to be you sit in a dark room, you get a manual, somebody teaches you something on a projector. Nowadays, you have these collaborative technologies and online courses that you can take, and learning is just completely changed. So what's the last one? What's the D?
D is demand data.
Oh.
The poor HR function is behind everybody else in data. And there is a huge interest amongst business leaders and HR leaders to apply the principles of Moneyball to HR. Are we hiring the right people? Why do we have sales productivity problems in this part of the company? Why do we have high turnover in this department versus that department? Why do we have quality problems? Why do we have compliance problems? HR has all sorts of data that can help you decipher these problems, but has not done a very good job over the years of cleaning it up and managing it, because most HR departments have 10, 15 different sources of data, and they've grown through acquisitions, and they basically didn't put the time into cleaning it all up. So there's a huge growth in the application of analytics. So that's kind of the fourth one.
Okay, so
but let me just add one more. There's one more uber thing about HR, and that is we think today HR has to be bold. HR people have to reinvent things. You can't take what worked at a brand company 30 years ago, and they wrote it in a book and apply it today. It's not going to work.
Challenge convention.
Yep.
I talk about that all the time, so I love that theme. All right, so just to recap, the B stood for?
Build an irresistible organization.
Okay.
Own the leadership agenda, leverage learning everywhere, and demand data. BOLD.
So that's what the future of HR is going to look like, being bold. Great. Well, that's it for this week's episode of The Future in 5. My guest, again, was Josh Bersin. And you're on, what's your Twitter handle?
JOSH_BERSIN.
So follow Josh on Twitter. He's also a LinkedIn influencer. Of course, if you want more episodes of The Future in 5, you can visit thefutureorganization.com, or you can follow me on Twitter as well, @JacobM. I'll see you next time. Hey, are you interested in the future of work? If so, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get all the latest content on the future of work and stay up to date on all the latest trends and happenings. Not to mention, you will make me very, very happy. Make sure to subscribe.